이곳은 영국입니다. 산업혁명과 자본주의의 나라. 현대 문명의 장단점을 고스란히 안고 있는 대표적인 나라죠.
And this is a short poem called Heaven Haven. It's a kind of utopia for someone in pain. I have desired to go where springs not fail, where flies no sharp and sided hail, and a few lilies blow. And I have longed to be where no storms come, where the green swell is in the havens dun, and out of the swing of the sea. If you start with a poem in a meeting or a lecture, it changes the wavelength.
고통 없는 평화의 세상. 과연 가능할까요? 그것도 우리가 사는 바로 이곳에서 말이에요.
The world and the United Kingdom has never needed cooperation more. It's never needed schools like this more because we've lost our soul, we've lost our way. And schools and education have become examination factories, and where we used to be very creative and based on human beings and humanity, and we seem to be given higher and higher expectations in a more and more divided society. So over the last 20 years, the gap between the rich and the poor in this country has got wider and wider.
영국인들이 새로운 학교 설립 운동을 시작한 이유가 여기에 있습니다.
안녕하세요. I'm Josh Ma. I play cornet in the Lipscomb Cooperative Big Band, and I also go to school at the Lipscomb Cooperative Academy.
I'm Maddie Anderson in Year 10 at Taunton High School, and I'm a student governor, chair of school council.
I'm Alice Stevens, I'm the chairman of the Lipscomb Catering Cooperative.
I'm Neve Faye, I'm from Lipscomb Cooperative Academy, and I'm the vice chair of the student voice group.
My name is Michael Rossington. I'm 12 years old and I go to Lipscomb Cooperative Academy. I am part of the biodiversity group.
협동조합으로 이루어진 학교. 학교 자체가 협동조합인 학교. 협동조합 학교입니다. 알고 보면 영국은 협동조합의 나라입니다. 협동조합의 아버지 로버트 오웬은 웨일즈에서 태어나 런던과 맨체스터를 거쳐 스코틀랜드에서 협동조합 공동체를 꿈꾸었습니다. 세계 최초의 협동조합이 170년 동안 성업 중인 나라가 바로 영국입니다.
When people here think about cooperatives, they mainly think about cooperative shops. In fact, the history is a much bigger one. When Robert Owen first tried to apply his cooperative principles in his factory in the village in Scotland, in New Lanark, he was trying to do something much bigger. He was trying to create a cooperative community. And in fact, education was a central part of that. He believed that education and the formation of character was a very necessary part of developing any kind of enlightened community.
200년 전 유토피아를 꿈꾸었던 거대한 프로젝트가 지금 다시 꿈틀대고 있습니다.
The first Cooperative Trust School opened in 2008. It was a school which converted from being a local authority comprehensive school to becoming the first cooperative trust. Over the period of 7 years now, we've gone from that first school to having 843 cooperative schools across the UK, which has just been a phenomenal growth, far, far faster than anyone could possibly have envisaged at the outset.
You make such an important emphasis on education for your economic project. And he said, oh no, you've got it wrong. This is an educational project which has an important economic base.
경제와 교육은 분리될 수 없습니다.
And I think that is a key for cooperation.
처음부터 협동조합은 교육 공동체였습니다. 미래 세대를 위한 영국 공립학교들의 선택. 협동조합은 학교입니다.
So Lipson School has always been at the heart of its community. It's always been outward facing. At one point it was called a community college, and that means as well as students during the day, we educated adults during the evening. So we've always been at the heart of our community. We saw cooperation as a way of perpetuating that and of building on everything that we believed in and everything we'd already achieved. So it was a kind of natural evolution really, rather than a revolution.
플리머스가 있는 영국 남동부 지역은 협동조합 학교가 특별히 많은 곳입니다. 지난 7년 사이 40%가 넘는 이 지역 공립학교가 협동조합 학교로 전환했습니다.
We knew what a cooperative school was before we came to the school, and that was a main thing that made decisions of people coming here. Also, people who didn't know what a cooperative school was did know by the time they were a few weeks into the school.
To me, democracy is everybody having a view and sharing it and having free speech and everybody being equal. And that's how I view the school, that the teachers aren't considered part of the hierarchy.
I think I've learned, and to grow as a person, I think I've learned that I have a voice and that I will be listened to, and that there's so many things I can do to help other people who are afraid to speak up.
I am really hoping to have my own catering business to follow on from this. Hoping this is going to be a really good experience to boost my skills forward. In our group, we decided, because we loved catering so much, we're going to take it that one step further and do our own little business and start our own little cooperative business.
I never really thought before I came to the school that music would be like that big in my life, and then I've thought this is really good, and I've just started to grow in passion for it, and I've just thought, yeah, this is what I want to do now. So it has it has put an influence on what you want to do, like especially when you've got the right people around you, you've suddenly thought, yeah, I want to do this for the rest of my life, really.
열정과 자신감, 학생들의 협동조합, 영코업이 주는 최고의 선물입니다.
The first real opportunity came when there was a major initiative in this country about enterprise education. It was the reason that our economy was failing was because young people weren't enterprising enough. The reason young people weren't enterprising enough was because schools weren't teaching them to be enterprising. And the reason schools weren't teaching them to be enterprising was that teachers didn't know enough about enterprise because they'd never been in it. And the reason they'd never been in it is we had a system whereby young people went from education into higher education and then into teaching in education. One of which was about how, in addition to work experience placements, you actually gave young people an opportunity to have experiences of enterprise within the school curriculum. And a whole series of initiatives started about mini enterprise in schools, where schools set up to actually make or sell or produce things that in a real enterprise. That started a real vision about how you actually could teach cooperation to a new generation, or more to the point, how you could learn cooperation through doing it and practicing it.
전기 자동차를 만드는 협동조합, 그린파워도 그렇게 만들어졌죠.
Our car is mainly run by electricity. We made it from like a polystyrene bodywork now. First it came as a kit car made of aluminium metal, but then we drove some holes inside to make it lighter. We have tyres which go very thin to make less friction on the floor to make the car go faster. We also put 2 batteries in the car which runs the whole car. 2 batteries usually is good for 1 hour and a half.
It's called a young cooperative because we're all students and it's run by the students. We'll have teacher supervision and people helping us, and it's not just left to the adults to control it all. It shows that we really have our say, and by calling ourselves the young cooperative, it shows that it's us who do it. We have the central role.
출장 요리사로 제법 큰 사업을 벌이고 돈도 법니다.
In the catering cooperative, we generally cook for different people around the school, and we are hired by people to do events and do the productions. There are about 15, 16 of us, and we get together to talk about what we're going to do as a group.
Young cooperatives don't necessarily need to have a business aspect to them. Some of our most successful young cooperatives are ones that have a business dimension to them. The catering cooperative, they take charge of events, they make food, they make the money, they then decide how that money gets redistributed in their business. But that's not true of all of them. For example, the green car doesn't particularly have a business model to it, but it's much more about empowering the students with the skills. So those students have the opportunities for engineering, they have the opportunities to race cars, but they also have the opportunities to learn the softer skills about the cooperation, about working with others, and about that kind of cooperative ethos about we can achieve better together than alone.
Young cooperatives are really important because you can't learn about entrepreneurship through a book. You learn by doing, and you learn by setting up a small company and making it work. There are two types of people. There are people who get on and do things, and there are people who sit on the sidelines.
When I was in my 30s and 40s, I don't think I'd have understood some of the stresses the world is now facing. You know, all the issues happening in Europe and things of that sort. Unless you develop the right values with those young people, how do we know they're going to deal with that properly and play the correct place in society? So if you take it narrowly down to the curriculum, why would we teach in mathematics certain topics and only certain topics? The reality is we should be providing an education that equips us for the future.
무엇보다 이 학교의 제일 큰 자랑은 지역 행사의 단골 초대 손님, 빅밴드 협동조합인데요. 공연을 앞두고 늦은 밤까지 연습이 한창입니다.
There's about 27 to 30 people in the band, and it ranges from, I want to say 12, our youngest player is 12, and then our oldest player is Gav, our teacher, who is, I want to say 53, yeah.
I think that the big band contributes a lot more to the outer community as well as school. For example, we'll go and play on gigs outside of the school, and we'll have a lot of compliments emailed into the school, and it just shows how a lot of other people are interested, and a lot of people have contacted us saying, oh, could so-and-so come and join, can so-and-so have a go at it.
협동조합에선 선생님도 학생도 모두 똑같은 한 명의 조합원입니다.
What teachers need to know is that learning is not about being told things and then having to memorize them. Learning is about experiencing. Learning is about explaining. Learning is about rehearsing. And often pupils work far better doing that together if you can set up the right environment for them to do that. And that then is really engaging and motivational for them. So school becomes something that they really enjoy doing.
수업 듣고 시험 치는 수동적인 학교가 아닙니다. 스스로 만들어가는 학교죠. 학교 협동조합은 학교 전체에 열정을 불어넣습니다.
People know how to be individually competitive, but how to be socially cooperative is a different art. After all, in people's private lives, they're within competition the whole time in capitalist society. They don't need to learn about that. They know about it in the job market. But how to create cooperatives is a different thing. So that I would say in the main function of a school will be how to teach effective cooperation.
학교가 가르쳐야 하는 건 경쟁이 아니라 협동입니다. 19세기 빅토리아 시대로 거슬러 올라가는 협동조합의 역사가 그 이유를 설명해 줍니다.
The 1840s in Rochdale was a very difficult time for working people. It was a time of great unemployment and great poverty. Rochdale was moving from being a wool weaving town to being a cotton weaving town. And from the 1820s to the 1840s, the wages of the weavers had halved. At the same time, the prices of food particularly had doubled. So you can see how much poverty there was around at the time. The Rockstar Pioneers got together and they wanted to change things. They knew that the world could be a better place, and they decided that by working together, they could make it a better place.
로치데일의 선구자들은 조합을 통해 스스로를 가난에서 구합니다. 선구자의 한 사람, 존 콜리어의 묘비는 이렇게 적고 있습니다. 세상이 나의 조국이었다. 선한 일을 하는 것이야말로 나의 종교다.
The Victorian period in this country was a period of real change and real struggle. And on the one hand, we had this fantastically successful growth of capitalism and empire, and that produced great material wealth for some people. But of course, it also produced something very different. It produced extremes of social poverty. The gap between the rich and the poor was enormous, particularly in the early period. Living conditions in many places were utterly dreadful. And so alongside that very aggressive form of capitalism, there also emerged something which seems in some ways so completely different. They ended up creating model communities and pioneering new forms of social innovation.
로버트 오웬의 정신을 이어받은 최초의 협동조합. 이곳이 바로 로치데일 협동조합 상점이 있던 곳입니다.
The Rochdale Pioneers was not the first cooperative society, but what they did when they got together was to look at the experiences of those that went before, decide what worked, and said, right, we'll use that idea, and decide what hadn't worked, and avoid it. They got together as part of a group of meetings to try and decide what to do to make things better. They looked at opening a shop, an easy step, something that they could do in their spare time, what spare time you have when you work 12 hours a day. But they could open the store in the evenings, giving people access to good quality food, fair prices and fair weights and measures. And those were the things that they were originally looking at. That wasn't their only aim, of course. If you look at Law First in their rule book, which sets out their aims and objectives, opening a shop was the first of a step. The second step was going to be building housing. Housing at the time for the working classes was appalling. Next, they wanted to do manufacturing. Producing materials and also employing people was one of the important things at a time of great unemployment. Their big aim was one which they called to arrange the powers of production, distribution, education and government. They felt that if those four things were done through cooperation, the world would be a better place. And that really is their big aim, what they were working towards. But they took a really step-by-step approach. Do something that they were comfortable with, that they could manage, make a success of it, and then move on to the next.
그런데 그 원대한 꿈을 꾸던 협동조합과 지금 우리가 아는 협동조합은 왜 이렇게 다른 모습일까요?
What is a cooperative? Well, cooperative is an organizational form on the one hand, but it is also a way of relating and making decisions. And you can do the relationships without having the form. Originally in England, it was a very innovative form, completely innovative. And it was a form that derived from the processes and the relationships.
조합이라는 오래된 형식을 넘어 협동조합 학교는 어떻게 운영되는지 들여다봅니다. 촐톤 중고등학교는 2년 전 협동조합 학교로 바뀐 맨체스터의 공립학교입니다. 언제나 그렇듯 어른들보다 아이들의 적응력이 더 빠릅니다.
Okay, has everyone finished their discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, Abdi, we'll start with you.
Our cooperative value is self-help, and this is important in the classroom as when you work in either in a group or a pair, you learn from each other and you get different ideas, get a different perspective. You never thought of, and then you come together to create this like very unique piece together.
Our cooperative value was self-responsibility. We thought in the school council, well, this equates to expressing what your year group has said and the feedback that they have given, and then not twisting the truth.
Our cooperative value was democracy. We don't just get our opinion of what we want to change in problems that have occurred to us, but we get everybody else's.
Our corporate value was equality, and like it's good in classrooms where you don't feel that someone's better than you or you're better than someone. Everyone's on the right stage, so that means it creates a good working environment for learning.
I think equity is good in the school council because it allows you to not be prejudiced on someone's idea and judge them on the person, but judge it on the idea itself and take all ideas into account.
Ours was solidarity in the school council, like when we went to Newell Green and we worked with another cooperative school, so we could like share ideas with each other and how to improve the learning environment of the school.
아이들은 학년도 나이도 따지지 않습니다. 우리로 치면 고등학교 1학년인 마디가 중고등학교 전체 총 학생회 회장입니다.
My role as a school governor is making sure the student voice is heard. The process that I became a governor is I became a form rep, and then we played a video of an assembly of my election speech, and I became a part of the whole school council, and then I was voted forward to become the chair. That meant I was a governor.
The main element of becoming a cooperative academy is stakeholder involvement. On our senior governance structure within the school, we have to have parents, community, student and staff representation, and it is in our what's called our Articles of Association as an academy, which is our core legal document that says we have to have representatives from those key groups at the most senior level within the school on our governing body, and that ensures that representatives from each of those key groups have a say in what happens at that highest level within the organisation.
Our vision for Taunton High School for the future is that all students, all members of our school community, so parents and staff and wider community, are successful, creative and happy. The role of the head teacher does change when the school became a cooperative academy. I think the head teacher is a role that's often seen working with governors at governors' meetings and reporting back and being questioned by the governors as a kind of body. However, as we moved into being a cooperative academy, what became clear was you began to work with the different stakeholder groups in different ways. So as well as the parents, the students, the staff and the community governors coming together around one table at the proper governing meetings, it does also mean that the head teacher can go and work with the school council in a different way. So you actually get to listen to more stakeholders' views.
There's one phrase that a colleague of mine said about the model when he first saw it. He said, what you're doing with this is you're putting the community back into community schools. Because we'd called lots of schools community schools, but the community had very limited opportunities for engagement. We provided a structural model that did that, but also seemed to have the potential to last. Once head teachers saw that and understood it, they were the key advocates with their governing bodies. They were the ones that you would never take one of these changes through without the support of the head, the leadership team and governing bodies. And they became the key advocates to it.
흔히 잊기 쉽지만 사실은 학교야말로 우리 삶에 있어 가장 중요한 공동체의 하나죠.
Okay, welcome everybody. Can we just start with introductions?
I'm Alita McLaughlin and I'm the Vice Chair of the whole school council.
I'm Maddie Anderson and I'm the Chair of the whole school council.
Laura Silcock, Deputy Head Teacher. Beth Nunn, Staff Governor.
Maggie Fox, Co-opted Governor.
And Amanda Edwards, Parent Governor and Vice Chair.
The focus of today's Governors' meeting is the personal development of students, and our role as Student Council is going to be reviewing the 20 things we have accomplished this year and what else needs to be done.
In a normal governors meeting, they happen every half term, and there's representatives from the school, there's teachers, parents and then people from the community, and then they all come together and they speak about they present a topic.
In local authority maintained schools, the traditional type of school in the UK, the role of the governing body is to oversee the management of the school and the delivery of education in the school. But in a cooperative school, there are some additional responsibilities, especially in a cooperative academy. The governors are also the trustees of the school, so they are accountable to the Department for Education for the finances of the school. They hold the land and assets of the school in trust as a charitable trust.
I would say that having been to other governing body meetings, we never had the students come in and talk to us about their role and how they felt, and questioning us on what we are doing. And that is a big difference. It means that we are having to listen to all our stakeholders in a real cooperative way.
I'm from a theatre background. I felt it very important that on the governing body there was a voice from the performing arts sector.
I feel that's really impacted on me as a classroom teacher as well as a governor. It's been really interesting to truly understand how a school works, and I think that's what's really good about for staff governors. I think your understanding of school life really broadens, and then it does impact on your teaching ability as well as your whole professional responsibility.
If you divorce the school from its community, from the key stakeholders such as the trade unions that are working in the school, the staff who are working in the school, the learners in the school, to be blunt, and the community. So for me, what happened with the cooperative school movement is that we started off to say, what sort of values would we want in a school? We want children to be good citizens, to be open and honest. And we were talking about the type of child.
모든 회의는 매 학기에 2번, 1년에 6번 정기회의를 갖습니다. 오늘 총 학생회는 새학년을 맞는 첫 번째 회의입니다.
Hey guys, and welcome to the whole school council meeting. So first off, we're going to go through the 20 achievements from last year and put them in order from these sheets of paper. We'll put them across the table in the order you think. So at this end will be the most important, and then at that end will be the least important.
Should we just take one pass?
Yeah. And then read it out and think about the... Okay, first off, which one do you think you have that is important? If you have one that you think is important, just read it out.
Question the Vivo representative.
That's below.
Can we put that there, so it's done?
That's why we got the MEN award.
Introduce students' voice days called Have a Say Day.
That was
that's
important.
very.
Because without that, we wouldn't have had everything else.
The high sugar caffeine drinks being banned.
That's important. I think.
Yeah, but most people are angry about that.
Yeah, but it's still
Everyone's
important.
really annoyed. And everyone's still drinking weekly.
Taking part in community projects, including teaching Southway housing residents digital skills and helping to plant seeds to live.
I think it's very important to help the community though, and also taught us how to teach people and instruct people.
Yeah, it's like going further than the school.
Yeah, it's going further than our cooperative community.
Our footprint.
Shows them the colour of the toilets.
That's really important.
Yeah,
that is really important.
That's that on the uniform tender panel. That's like
Not
at the
as
bottom.
important as the recycling.
Bottom.
Sorry, Maddie.
Previously, the school council have been quite critical about the colour that it's been. So at one of their meetings, they all sat down together with colour charts and have actually decided on the colour it's going to be. After on the choice of that, they've then been able to work with the estates team. So the school council have sat with the estates manager and explained to them how they would like to see the improvements over the next school year.
Why were they complaining over the colour of the toilets?
Because the girls' toilets were pink, and we thought that it was like gender stereotyping.
What colours have you gone for?
It's like a sea light blue colour. Is it in both toilets?
Yeah.
Within our governance structure, we have the flexibility to determine our committee structure, which supports the decision-making process. So we have decided we have a number of subcommittee meetings that meet every half term, and that culminates in what we call a full governing body meeting, which also take place once every half term. And really those committees serve as potentially a decision-making point. If the decision is relatively not a very major decision, then that committee can make a decision on that and that can be implemented. But if it's a more important decision, that committee tends to act as a discussion point, and they will review the points, and then it will take a full review at the governors' meeting.
함께 토론하고 결정을 존중합니다. 학교 운영에 참여하는 것이 그대로 민주주의를 체험하는 과정입니다. 교과서로 배우기 전에 경험으로 알게 되는 것이 더 많은 곳. 협동조합 학교는 그런 곳입니다.
We recognised very early that we needed cooperative ideas and cooperative schools to be in the mainstream and not simply on the margins if we were going to make a difference. A number of years ago, I remember discussing with our board, saying that we really need 100 cooperative schools to be taken seriously. And I think that once we got to 100 cooperative schools, we did notice a very significant difference in attitude by not so much government ministers, but the key civil servants. And I think at the moment that if you look now, we're over 800 cooperative schools in England. We are the third biggest network after the Church of England. I think it's actually having the confidence and the vision about how do we make sure we're not just content to be an alternative on the sidelines, to say what our ideas are. Cooperation is absolutely critical, and developing cooperative citizens is so important. We need to discuss how we actually mainstream these ideas. And cooperation is not a threat to the form of society we've got, but it's the absolute essential skills for a 21st century economy.
So universal education only really started in this country about 150 years ago, and it was closely associated with the Industrial Revolution in Victorian England, where there was an obvious need to provide education skills to a much wider section of the population to work in the factories and the offices and the businesses and so on.
미술관은 많은 이야기를 담고 있습니다. 런던 길드홀 미술관 중앙에 크게 걸린 이 작품은 누구나 다닐 수 있는 학교, 보통 교육의 역사적 탄생을 그리고 있습니다.
The key kind of date in English educational history is the 1870 Elementary Education Act. It allows for the creation of school boards in local areas, and they're created to in areas supposedly where there's not enough educational provision. So the school boards can then establish schools in the so-called gaps between the existing provision of perhaps church schools and other sorts of schools.
명문 사립학교로 유명한 영국이지만 정작 사립학교를 다니는 영국 학생은 겨우 7%에 불과합니다.
These have been organised on particular models, come from business and from the state, top-down model, a pyramid model, organisations of discipline, ideological, and they had a structure. That has still been the tradition. So if you try and change that model, it's not so much bottom-up, it is that all those involved in schooling are now participating in discussing through problems, in setting out what it does. This is a profound innovation.
경쟁으로만 그려진 학교 모델은 더 이상 환영받지 못합니다. 함께할 줄 모르는 사람이 환영받지 못하는 것과 같습니다. 영국 협동조합에서 연출자로 일하는 베이커 선생님은 20년째 이 학교의 교장 선생님입니다.
Well, we appointed Mr. Baker when he was quite young. Steve Baker stood out at that time because he was visionary, and he's continued to be visionary in the 20 years he's been here. And we always seem to be one step ahead of everybody else. He's very good at understanding the educational system and what's happening next and how things are being directed by government.
In the United Kingdom, schools are run by governing bodies, and that's a group of about 20 people who are lay people. That means they're not professionals. They live in the local community. They may be parents, doctors, lawyers, whatever. And it was those people that appointed me. And I think they did take a big gamble in reality. At the time, the school was also controlled by a local authority, and that was Devon County Council. There were, I believe, 59 applicants for the post, and the authority shortlisted 30. I wasn't on that shortlist. It was the local governors, the parents, made sure I went on the list, if you like. I only found this out the other week, by the way. They only told me a long time later. But they put me on the list, and then I was interviewed, and it takes 3 days for a headship interview in this country.
So you started wearing the big dot Martin boots, the bomber jacket. What, have you got a swastika on your forehead? Are you a Nazi or something?
Why cooperation and teaching cooperation is crucially important. It's not just important for the cooperative movement itself. It's about the ability of people, however wise and clever and skillful they are as individuals, to be able to work with others. And I think one of the most sophisticated skills, if you've actually got real cooperation, is the ability to work not just with your mates, but to be able to work with people you don't know particularly well, who have a completely different set of interests to you. You may not even like at a personal level, but you have the ability to work with towards a common goal.
잘 모르는 사람들 혹은 생각이 다른 사람들과 협동할 줄 아는 능력. 여러분은 그런 능력 갖고 계신가요?
The dangers are what sort of child we are bringing up in the system. And there's been an increasing focus on developing certain sets of results and performance. And really, if we want an England or a United Kingdom that's going to have its place in society, we've got to have people with the right sort of attitudes and beliefs.
Mathematics, English, geography, history, and the 3 sciences. And of course, those subjects are very important. Academic subject and the mastery of knowledge is critical. We believe in that. But we also believe in the wider aspects of culture. We believe in the arts, and we believe in the humanities in its widest sense.
협동은 특별한 활동, 특수 과목으로 배우는 게 아닙니다. 모든 수업 현장에 협동하는 교육법이 스며들어 있습니다.
When you ask the other people for help, they'll explain it to you, which sort of it repeats it to you again, so you remember that. And then when you ask the teacher as well, then it sort of refreshes in your mind again, so you remember it again. And the more you go over it with all the different people, because you're able to talk to them about it, the more you remember it. And I've realised since coming to this school, my grades have got better, and I genuinely think it's because of the amount of times you're able to talk to other people in the lessons. And even at like break times and lunch times, people will still be talking about the lessons, so you're still able to just always refreshing it. And like you have revision groups in the school that everyone will come together and you'll do big activities together where you'll all work through it, and if one person doesn't understand it, the rest will explain it to them, so it's also sort of refreshing in their minds when the people are explaining it, like what it actually is. And I just think it all adds up, and then when you finally get to the exams or the evaluations or whatever are happening, you feel a lot more secure in your knowledge and yourself, so it sort of comes across with better grades and stuff.
The cooperative learning is often misunderstood. People often think it's just group work, but it's where children are really, or adults, are really working together to support each other's learning. That's important that that's begun very early in children's school education.
Stand up, pair up, please.
please. Stand up, Tara. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Now, think back to last week. We decided on 3 reasons that make a planet a planet. So, in your pairs, you've got 30 seconds to explain your 3 reasons what makes a planet a planet. Off you go.
So if you're developing cooperative learning, teachers need to understand that there are steps or stages to do that. One of the first steps that they need to do is to develop the right classroom environment or ethos so that children feel not threatened, not worried, and that they are free to cooperate, where they feel it's a real community that they can work in.
Each member of your group is going to work on a different set of questions that piece the evidence together. Then you are going to bring your questions together as a group and share your ideas so that individually you can come up with your own conclusion. Should Pluto be a planet? Okay, you've got to decide based on the evidence that you bring together as a group. Okay?
And the next step then is to begin to develop skills, starting with some really basic skills such as what we call active listening, being a really good listener, listening to a peer, a partner, of course the teacher as well. The next step is that teachers start to develop paired work, so they work with a partner in the classroom. In that way, every child has a chance to participate, not the teacher asks a question and a few children raise their hands and answer. Every child talks to their partner and then they share their responses.
짝이 이래서 필요하다는 사실 알고 계셨나요?
You can use cooperative learning techniques and pedagogy in any school. I don't think you have to be restricted to being in a cooperative school to use those learning approaches. I think what gives the cooperative school an advantage, though, is that everything in the school is predicated on those values. So everything in the school is built upon those values. So it makes it more powerful because it's not just about the learning that goes on in the classroom, it's also about the ethos of the school, it's about the mentality of the staff, it's about the mentality of the students.
You can write the answers, share information in your group, write the answers around where the questions are. Then by the end of it, when you share it, you should have kind of got an answer for every question.
교단 위에서 내려다보지 않습니다. 자기만의 자리를 고집하지 않죠. 끊임없이 움직이고 토론하는 교실에서 혼자 졸고 있을 여유는 없어 보입니다.
The dominant culture in the UK education system at the moment and the government policy is very much to encourage schools to compete. Parents are encouraged to look at school league tables that are published in the papers to see which are the best schools to try and get their students into the best schools.
That in the long term, one of the most critical success indicators for cooperative schools will be the extent to which they embed schools' improvement through cooperation. It was about complete commitment to share data. Not to hide data, not to hide things that were uncomfortable, but to share it so it could be discussed. Even the strongest schools had as much to learn from weaker schools as weaker schools had got to learn from stronger schools. And it was actually seeing sustainable improvement about being mutually beneficial, not about the wonderful pulling the others up. It was a mutual process. Cooperative schools committed not just to the success of their own schools, but seeing the success of their own schools is mutually dependent on working cooperatively with other schools in the locality.
특수학교도 대안학교도 아닙니다. 협동조합 학교는 평범한 공립학교입니다. 한 학교가 두 학교가 되고 전 지역이 함께 협동조합 학교로 전환하는 경우가 늘어갑니다. 협동할 줄 아는 개인과 지역을 키우는 곳, 그것이 바로 협동조합 학교입니다.
my opinion of a cooperative school is a school that empowers students. It gives students opportunities to develop as individuals and as people, to develop as future citizens, really. So a cooperative school is a school that enables them to do those things. It really gives them opportunities for the future, and it just enables them to grow as people. And I think it's much more than just a formal education. It's much more than just passing exams and getting a piece of paper that says they can do certain things. It's about the skills that will, you know, help them live successfully in the future.
Culture, reflect, performance. Culture comes first, and if you keep working on the culture, in the end, the scoreboard will take care of itself.
It was a 2-day event, so it was a whole weekend, so it was 2 days, and each day we had 6 hours each day of playing. I don't even know how I managed to do it, to be completely honest, because my lip kind of went. When you see people, with the people's reaction after you've played a song, and especially after one that you think you played really, really well, it's definitely the most rewarding thing. So just seeing them smile and have a bit of a dance in the cold is, like, you know, one of the best things that you could possibly do, in my opinion.
I think in our society, for the last 20 or 30 years, the kind of culture that has been developing has been a me-first culture. And you see that in the behaviour of individual people, you see it in the behaviour of businesses, some of the behaviours of the banks recently and other large corporations. There's been a me-first behaviour, regardless of the cost to other people. Now, we've seen a lot of that, but it's not the whole story. And we always see alongside that and against it something else, which is people wanting to find a different way of organising society and realising that me first in the end doesn't work. The banks collapse, the economy doesn't thrive, not in the long term, maybe in the short term, but not in the long term.
For me personally, the cooperative values are things which I feel fit with the general values of education. You know, we want our young people to be resourceful and self-reliant. We want them to be resilient. We want them to be good citizens, to know how to operate in society. We want them to show respect, treat other people fairly. And so all the cooperative values match very well. But what the cooperative values give you is a framework that it fits into a global movement. It's a set of values which are understood by members of a movement which has 1 billion members around the world. So wherever you go, whatever your future holds for you, you will be able to work with other people in a really positive way to build a better world.
What the modern post-Darwinians are saying is actually there are two types of competition going on. One is an individual competition. The other is cooperation between systems, collective competition. Societies or organizations which privilege private, old Darwinian models of competition are less effective as systems, and therefore they lose out to systems that can cooperate. This is very profound, because what it puts on the table, it's not about cooperation taking over from competition. It is about over what space you cooperate and with whom you are competing. You're not going to eliminate all competition through cooperation. Can cooperative schools create a more fulfilling, adequate educational system than the other model. That's their form of competition. And it will depend on how they make effective the relationships within their operations.
협동하는 학교는 존재하지 않는 유토피아가 아닙니다. 영국에는 이미 800개가 넘는 공립학교가 협동조합으로 운영되고 있습니다.